They didn't just steal the papers. Florida never does things halfway. They stole the whole courthouse. Timbers, ink, even the clerk still bolted to his chair under a moonless sky in 1891. One moment, a bustling county seat. The next, a hollow in the pines where the town's heart used to beat. By sunrise, Mannfield had lost its soul, carted away by rival townspeople in a brazen act of civil larceny. Now, I don't know how many parts this story will take, but I do know the forest isn't done talking yet. I came looking for a cemetery, but this place, it had other plans. Roads I didn't mean to find. Questions I didn't mean to ask. The forest still talks here, just not in words we're used to hearing. Imagine waking up to find your town's reason for existing gone before breakfast. Your courthouse, the symbol of law and order, community and commerce, vanished overnight. That's precisely what happened here, in the heart of what would become Citrus County. Today, we're not just walking dusty trails. We're treading the very ground where streets once bustled with life, where dreams were built and then shattered. We're hunting for the only thing that thieves left behind, the ghosts. Not necessarily spectral figures, but the echoing stories, the lingering presence of a town that simply refused to stay put. Mannfield, named for Senator Austin S. Mann, was settled in 1884 and boasted a population of 250 within a year. It had a school, 2 churches, 3 general stores, a wagon works, a real estate office, and its own newspaper, the Citrus County Star, which printed every week from 1887 until the night the presses fell silent in 1891. Today, all that remains is a cemetery, a capped well pipe, and what locals call the Stairway to Hell. Most likely, though, it was just a cattle vat, one of the many used to fight the tick plagues that once haunted Florida's herds. Because before it was a ghost town, Mannfield was a cattle town. Austin Mann was not a man who whispered his ambitions. In 1884, he carved 40 acres of scrub and sand out of central Florida and called it Mannfield. Subtle, right? But Mann wasn't just a dreamer. He was a state senator who knew how to pull levers in Tallahassee. Within 3 years, his influence helped carve Citrus County out of Hernando, and Mannfield, his namesake, was crowned the temporary county seat. For a few golden years, the town thrived on sawdust, politics, and promise. The town exploded. Population soared from virtually nothing to 250 in what felt like overnight. This wasn't just a collection of shacks. Mannfield quickly became a thriving hub. The Citrus County Star newspaper, a beacon of local news and opinion, rolled off a hand press each week, delivering updates on everything from crop prices to social gossip. 3 general stores sprang up, stocked with everything a pioneer family could need. A 2-story hotel offered weary travelers a place to rest their heads. There was a school for the children, a church for Sunday services, and a sawmill that screamed from dawn till dusk, processing the abundant longleaf pine that fueled the local economy. For 4 short, glorious years, Mannfield didn't just exist. It mattered. It was the beating heart of a new Florida county, a testament to Austin Mann's shrewdness and the promise of the frontier. But, as with all good political dramas, a challenger emerged. Inverness, a rival settlement, began to flex its muscles, vying for the permanent county seat. The stakes were incredibly high. Being the county seat meant prestige, economic growth, and the crucial railway connections that were beginning to define Florida's future. The election that followed was a tempest. Ties, recounts, accusations of fraud, and even fistfights broke out as passions ran high. Finally, a judge's ruling came down, settling the matter. Inverness won by a mere 23 votes. Can you imagine the outrage? Mann's faction, feeling cheated and betrayed, vowed to fight on, to appeal, to do whatever it took to reclaim what they believed was rightfully theirs. They never expected Sheriff James Priest, an Inverness man through and through, to show up with wagons and a very literal, utterly audacious interpretation of moving day. Picture it. The air thick with humidity, crickets chirping a relentless chorus, a low-hanging swamp fog clinging to the pines. The year was 1891. The air was thick with humidity and vengeance. Sheriff James Priest and a band of Inverness loyalists slipped into Mannfield under a moonless sky. They came not to fight, but to move. They jacked up the courthouse itself, records and all, loaded them onto wagons, and vanished into the mist before dawn. Legend says Clerk William Zimmerman refused to leave his post, and that Priest's men simply took him too, desk and all. By the time the injunction, hastily sought by Mannfield supporters in Dade City, finally reached the town at dawn, there was nothing left to enjoin. The only thing remaining was a rectangle of crushed coquina, the local shell rock, where the courthouse once stood, and a simple brass door hinge, glinting mockingly in the first rays of the sun. The town's pride, its very identity, was gone, carried away in the thudding hoofbeats of horses disappearing into the pre-dawn mist. The impact was immediate and devastating. Mannfield was a town built on politics, and without the county seat, its political reason for existence evaporated. The much-anticipated railroad, which was supposed to bring prosperity, rerouted through Inverness just 2 years later in 1893, sealing Mannfield's fate. Stores, deprived of their customer base and the promise of future growth, began to close their doors. The Citrus County Star, its purpose diminished, printed its last edition, its final words likely a lament for a lost cause. Editor John P. Wall later relocated to Inverness. Families, seeing the writing on the wall, followed the tracks north, chasing opportunity to Inverness or other growing towns. By 1920, barely 3 decades after its founding, official maps simply stopped labeling the place. Mannfield, the ambitious dream of Austin man, had faded into obscurity. A town without a heart, a name without a pulse, a ghost town long before the term became popular. Today, if you're brave enough or curious enough, you can still find Mannfield. Park at the Dames Cave trailhead off Highway 491, a quiet stretch of road that gives no hint of the drama that unfolded here. Walk about half a mile or so past ancient live oaks draped in Spanish moss and dramatic limestone outcrops that jut from the forest floor. And then, suddenly, you're standing on Main Street. Except, Main Street is sand and wiregrass now, reclaimed by the relentless Florida wilderness. But the past isn't entirely erased. Foundations barely shin high and covered in centuries of moss hint at where buildings once stood. And then there's the staircase, It drops mysteriously into the earth, a gaping maw in the forest floor. Locals call it the Stairway to Hell, a wonderfully dramatic name for what is, in truth, just an old cattle dipping vat. But don't be fooled by its prosaic origin. One misstep, and you'd be tumbling into a dark, cool cave that maintains a steady 65 degrees year-round, a natural refrigerator in the sweltering Florida heat. It's a chilling reminder of the people who once lived here, storing their provisions, utterly unaware of the town's impending doom. A 100 yards further back, tucked away amidst the pines, lies the cemetery. 20 headstones, perhaps more, swallowed by time, their dates worn smooth by rain and sun. Most of the graves are no longer legible, a heartbreaking testament to the fragility of life in those early days. No roofs, no chimneys, no courthouse, just silence, thick and heavy as pine sap, broken only by the whisper of the wind through the trees. A century later, the woods have taken back everything but the stories. Hikers venturing into these quiet woods report inexplicable cold pockets where thermometers inexplicably plunge 10 degrees, even on the hottest days. Campers, settling down for the night, swear they hear disembodied voices murmuring after 3 a.m., just around the time Sheriff Priest made his move all those years ago. A forestry worker familiar with every inch of this land recounts how his usually fearless dog refuses to cross the cellar stairs, hackles up, growling at nothing but the shadows. The road in is quiet, just the wind and the long leaf and the crunch of your boots on shell rock. But step a little deeper, and the past starts watching. The capped well, the concrete foundation, the stairway to hell, half cattle vat, half portal to legend. I stood at its edge, camera in hand, when I heard a voice behind me. No one was there. I jumped, gasped, and scolded a ghost for startling me. Murph probably laughed himself sick.
Okay, that was scary. Don't do that again.
Documented by scientific instruments? Perhaps not. but repeated often enough by credible, otherwise rational people? Absolutely. These aren't just whispers. They're echoes, resonating from a time when a town was ripped from its foundations. Ghost towns, by their very nature, breed stories. They're blank spaces on the map, and our human imagination, ever eager to fill a void, rushes in. Mannfield gives you just enough evidence to wonder, to question, to let your mind wander into the past. Here, you might stumble upon a single brick out of place in the sandy soil, a remnant of a more substantial structure. There, a page from an 1890 court docket, yellowed and brittle, lodged in a hollow log, a tangible link to the very papers that were stolen. Or perhaps glinting in the leaf litter, a child's marble, a small, innocent toy left behind when a family packed up their lives. The woods themselves play tricks on the senses. Sound, in such a dense environment, echoes and distorts. Owls, hooting in the deep night, can sound uncannily like women sobbing, a mournful cry carried on the breeze. The wind, whistling through the longleaf pines, can mimic the creak of wagon wheels, a ghostly procession returning to the scene of the crime. And to this oppressive Florida humidity, the way it presses in on you, and a flashlight that inevitably starts to flicker at the most inconvenient moment, and suddenly, every shadow becomes a courthouse thief, slipping back into the forest to finish the job, to perhaps reclaim a forgotten relic. Skeptics will call it suggestion, the power of a good story influencing perception. But locals? Many will tell you it's penance, the lingering consequence of a civic robbery so brazen, so complete, that the land itself remembers. Either way, the forest keeps collecting visitors, drawn by the allure of the unknown. People who want to decide for themselves if the silence is truly empty, or if something more profound, more unsettling, still resides among the pines. It's a place where history isn't just read, it's felt. A cold shiver down your spine, a whisper in the wind. If these woods, thick with history and mystery, have made you curious, then don't wait. Tap that subscribe button and ride along with us as we unearth more forgotten corners, more dramatic tales, and more lingering spirits of the Sunshine State. And definitely ring that notification bell so you don't miss the next lost town we bring back to life. Mannfield sits quietly, almost hidden, inside the vast embrace of the Withlacoochee State Forest. This isn't a theme park. It's public land, open during daylight hours, but with absolutely zero amenities. So if you plan a visit, come prepared. You'll need water, lots of it, especially outside of winter. Bug spray is non-negotiable. Florida mosquitoes are legendary. And most importantly, bring respect. This is a historical site, a cemetery, and a natural environment. That means no digging, no metal detectors, and absolutely under no circumstances should you take anything. Leave every brick, every shard of pottery, every relic exactly where it lies. The Florida Trail, a winding path for intrepid hikers, brushes the eastern edge of Mannfield, and you'll often find through campers camping nearby, seeking solace in the quiet woods. The best time to visit, hands down, is between November and March. The temperatures are glorious, usually in the 70s, making for comfortable hiking. Plus, the snakes are generally half asleep during the cooler months, a welcome bonus. For those that rely on GPS, be warned, cell service vanishes halfway down the trail, so screenshot your directions before you head out. Don't rely on a signal when you're deep in the woods. If you get turned around, find your way to a colored trail marker. Stay on that path and you'll eventually make it out of the woods. And a final word of caution. A piece of local folklore that's whispered around campfires. Park rangers swear that if you take even one artifact, the ghost of the courthouse clerk, Captain Zimmerman, follows you home. Now, that part's folklore, of course, until your flashlight mysteriously dies at midnight and you hear the unmistakable sound of desk drawers sliding open and shut in the dark just outside your bedroom door. Then, maybe, you'll wonder if the legend holds a kernel of truth. Ghost towns don't die. They just lose their witnesses. Mannfield never burned, never drowned, never vanished in fire or storm. It was stolen. And maybe that's why it still feels restless, like it's waiting for someone to write it back into existence. Mannfield wasn't just a stop on the map for me. It was a key. And every key fits a bigger lock. Every ghost town leaves a trail. Sometimes a path. Sometimes a scar. Sometimes a road swallowed by roots. This one doesn't end here. It just hands the story off to the next town. Let's go find it. Join Dusty and I as we uncover the strange, sacred, and sometimes spooky across the South, one back road at a time.